This timeless story has been told again and again, but this version gives us a modern twist. Hey guys, it's Phoebe with MsMojo. Today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 things Little Women did right and wrong.
This movie really is a manifestation of her unique vision. There's so much wisdom in it, and there's so much spirit. It's hopeful. It's like a gift to the world right at the time we need it.
We're taking a look at all the things we loved about Greta Gerwig's adaptation, and also some of the things we wish she'd done differently. Let's get to it.
I want to be great or nothing.
Number 10, the achronological narrative. Right. The most notable thing that Greta Gerwig did to set her adaptation apart from the ones that came before it was employing an achronological narrative style in her retelling.
I tried to keep things together as much as possible, but there was no way with the schedule, we were doing 4 seasons, 10 years, 8 plot lines, and there was no way to keep all of those in order.
The book Little Women was actually published in 2 parts, with the second taking place 3 years after the first. The film opens in this later timeline, so we get to see the March sisters as adults before we ever see them as children. Throughout the film, we go back and forth to the girls when they're all young and living at their family home, and to the later part of the narrative when they're mostly grown. To differentiate the 2 time periods, different lighting is used, in warm yellow tones for the earlier scenes and cool blue tones for the later ones.
I wanted childhood to have this golden glow, so we shot with a very specific filter.
Number 9, Beth's arc. Wrong.
Strength can even be found in weakness, and we especially see that with Beth.
Considering the book came out 150 years ago, we don't think we're spoiling anything when we say that Beth dies.
Beth dies.
Beth is always portrayed as the most saintly good one of the March family, but in the book, our knowledge of her illness and eventual death is doled out slowly with plenty of hope that she could get better. But Gerwig's version of the story opens with the news that Beth is gravely ill, with Joe rushing home from New York to be with her. Because of this, the audience gets a sense that she's doomed from the very start, and it makes it more difficult to connect with her as a character, since her primary characteristic is going to die.
I don't mind. I was never like the rest of you, making plans about the great things I'd do. I never saw myself as anything much.
Number 8, the casting. Right. Let's just first say that Timothée Chalamet and Saoirse Ronan can do no wrong.
I scorched my dress, see? There. And Meg told me to keep still so no one would see it.
Now that that's out of the way, it's almost impossible to imagine anyone else playing the primary role of Joe after seeing Ronan do it.
And they've got ambition, and they've got talent, as well as just beauty.
Laura Dern is the perfect Marmee, and utilizing Meryl Streep as the crotchety Aunt March was a stroke of genius.
No one makes their own way. Not really. Least of all a woman. You'll need to marry well.
But you are not married, Aunt March.
Well, that's because I'm rich.
The way the 4 girls interact with one another in a rough and tumble way makes it obvious that the 4 actresses had great chemistry together, and the viewer could almost see the fun they were having.
We went to go and watch A Star is Born and all cried.
Oh my God.
Oh. Yeah, we went.
And we sang Shallow for weeks.
Oh, wait.
But you made up what were the lyrics you made up?
Wait, what is the song? I'm in the deep end, splishing and splashing. I don't need armbands now.
2 of the actresses picked up Oscar nominations for their role, Saoirse Ronan in the category of Best Actress and Florence Pugh for Best Supporting Actress. Number 7, the March's economic situation. Wrong. From very early in the movie, it's made clear that the Marches are poor, and their larger economic context is shown when they donate their Christmas breakfast to a family in need, only to have their wealthy neighbors surprise them with an extravagant meal that blows them away.
He saw you giving your Christmas breakfast away and he wanted you to enjoy the day.
But to a modern viewer, the Marches don't exactly look hard done by. They live in a large house and have what seems to be live-in help with Hannah.
The March house is run down on the outside, but it's a beautiful jewel box on the inside.
The film doesn't take time to explain that the family actually came from wealth and lost it, which is why, to our eyes, it looks like things aren't actually that bad for them.
My nephew is as foolish with money as he is in his new philosophies. The one hope for your family is for Margaret to marry well.
Number 6, Amy's character. Right. Amy is often the most reviled of the March sisters, and can even be considered something of a villain in some scenes, like when she burns Joe's beloved book out of spite.
I'm gonna kill you! I'm gonna kill you!
but Gerwig gives Amy much more room to breathe and expands her character in a way that makes her more likable. The fact that we first meet her when she's older and working on her art in Europe, rather than as a petulant child, definitely helps. This movie might just change people's minds about the youngest March sister, and that's quite the accomplishment.
Everybody's perception of Amy is that she's the sour one, I suppose, in the family that is spoiled, and she has everything and she gets what she wants. And I think what I loved about this is that you really get to see her brilliance.
Florence Pugh's performance definitely adds to the improvements by making Amy seem self-assured and independent.
And if I had my own money, which I don't, that money would belong to my husband the moment we got married. And if we had children, they would be his, not mine. They would be his property. So don't sit there and tell me that marriage isn't an economic proposition, because it is.
Number 5, adding details of the author's life. Right. Gerwig said in an interview with Thrillist, "How do I not change what's in the book, but bring out what's already there? And how do I make a film that Louisa May Alcott would have liked?"
So one of the things I wanted to do was introduce the idea of Louisa May Alcott herself as the author of Little Women, and I wanted to collapse the space between Louisa May Alcott, the writer, and Jo March, the character.
Alcott was writing this novel in the mid to late 19th century, and there were many limitations then on what women could do.
And for women at that time, that's the only kind of possibility that you could have had. To marry well and to have a life and to have a safe life was, I mean, far more realistic than, let's say, what Jo did.
That's why at the end of the film, which we'll discuss more later, we see Jo arguing with her publisher about how she's going to end her book. This is what happened to the real-life author.
She never wanted Jo to get married and have children. She wanted Jo to be a spinster, but she was convinced by her publisher that that would not sell.
Gerwig also pulled quotes from Alcott's other works for one of the most affecting scenes in the movie, when Jo makes a speech about what women are capable of.
And I'm so sick of people saying that love is just all a woman is fit for. I'm so sick of it.
Number 4, historical context. Wrong. Little Women takes place in the American Civil War, but from Greta Gerwig's adaptation, you'd be hard-pressed to glean much historical context from the narrative. While there are brief mentions of the conflict, and of course the fact that the family patriarch is currently helping in the war effort and gets wounded doing so, Gerwig decided to largely stay away from the reality of it.
Meg!
In 2019, she could have given viewers a larger scope of what the world was like rather than focusing just on the March family, especially considering the fact that slavery was in the process of being abolished in the years that the narrative takes place.
A constitution that denies the basic rights of citizenship to women and black people?
They just passed the 15th Amendment, Jacob. They can vote.
Number 3, the feminist additions. Right. You might be surprised reading Little Women today how many feminist ideas it contains, considering how long ago it was written.
Men do not vote because they are good, they vote because they are male. And women should vote not because they are angels and men are animals, but because we are human beings and citizens of this country.
And while Louisa May Alcott provided plenty of material for Gerwig to work with, the screenwriter and director made some additions to spell out to the audience the position that women were in the late 19th century.
From an era where women literally had nothing. I mean, there's an amazing speech that Greta got me to say during the film, basically where Amy states that she won't own her children and she won't own any money. And if she leaves, everything will go to her husband.
Modern viewers might need to understand better why a woman in Amy's position would need to marry for money, and the speech that she gives Laurie is a concise yet expansive explanation of the position that women, even wealthy ones, were in at the time. Number 2, Professor Bear. Wrong. In the book, Professor Bear is described as neither rich nor great, young nor handsome. He's much older than Jo and is German.
Friedrich, this is what I write. My apologies if it fails to live up to your high standards.
Jo, there is more to you than this. If you have the courage to write it.
Gerwig acknowledged her awareness of that description and her want to change it, saying, quote, "This is the movies. I get to do what I want." In her film, Professor Bear is played by the undeniably handsome French actor Louis Garrel. While we can see the thought behind making Joe's alternate love interest more appealing, it does somewhat lessen the impact of Joe falling in love with someone who, by all standards, is not a good match for her.
I have loved you ever since I've known you, Joe. I couldn't help it.
It would be a disaster if we married.
It wouldn't be a
okay?
disaster.
We'd be miserable.
Joe, we would be a perfect...
In the book, her feelings show the reader that this is what she was looking for all along, despite appearances.
Is there nothing I might say to keep you here?
I confess that I was hoping that I might have a reason to stay.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. The ending. Right. The most marked change that Greta Gerwig makes to the story is in the ending. In the book, Joe becomes engaged to Professor Bear and everyone lives happily ever after.
Welcome home!
We get to see the March family a few years on at the school that Joe opens. But in the movie, Gerwig shows Joe debating with her editor whether her lead character should marry or not, and intersperses this discussion with the happy ending that readers were familiar with.
Make it short and spicy. And if the main character is a girl, make sure she's married by the end.
Ow, Joe!
The reality is, Louisa May Alcott did not marry herself, and never wanted Joe to either.
She herself, she never got married, she never had children, she kept writing, and she kept her copyright of her book.
This makes viewers question what is real and what is not, and adds a contemplative complexity to the narrative. Little Women was definitely my personal favorite movie of 2019, despite these slight divergences from the source material. But what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments or tweet me at Phoebe_WM. And check out this video.